That might be what that is.
Okay.
Sure.
Pretty sure
Well, whatever. It
ACC
doesn't
just has
matter.
one league, so I don't know what league it
All
is, but like,
right. So, let's kick off then. Welcome everyone to the Maverick Masterclass. Improve your racecraft. So, what we're going to go through tonight is a couple of little tips and tricks on how I tend to avoid incidences. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. Um, but they are little things that I have gathered over my own sim racing career, throughout my the what 14 years I've driven on the road as well. Because those skills are transferable too. And little things that I've picked up from watching different YouTube videos, so on and so forth as well, that I think help me to avoid certain incidences, which then means you can gain positions where other people might not. Um, and it stops you also losing positions as a result of getting penalties. So uh, we should all know probably by now that racing is not just about one lap pace. Um, Although one lap pace is useful, it can get you that pole position, which then means you can control the pace from the front. 20 drivers cannot be on pole. Only one person gets that. Everyone else then has to battle some way through traffic. Um, and to be able to do that throughout a whole race, you can't just expect to hot lap every time. Racing is all about reducing your average lap uh, over the entire course of the race, and that is not necessarily about pushing 100% all the time. The great Michael
uh,
Schumacher once said,
I just wanna
"Can
add
I
something.
take questions at the end, just so I can run through if you don't mind? Is that okay?"
Yeah, I just want to add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Uh, it's also about being consistent
Yes,
in the
yes, exactly.
race.
Yeah, thank you. Consistency is very important. Yes. So the great Michael Schumacher said, "To finish first, first you must finish," and that is rings very true. Um, the number of times where a very fast driver has ended up popping it on pole, and this happens in real F1 as it does in sim racing, and then they get a nice lead, and then they end up crashing and losing the win as a result. And as I say, it has happened in sim racing. It happened to Senna in Monaco while he had a 40-second lead. Um, but that comes to absolutely nothing if you don't finish the race first. So let's take a look then at these little tips and tricks to help you race better and see better results. So it will benefit you because you'll see better results throughout your sim racing career. But it also then, as well, the ulterior motive here, it also then benefits us as the FIA as well because then we see less incidents. And it benefits the community as a whole because we can then all race each other wheel to wheel. I know that there are several drivers within D1 that I can go wheel to wheel with. For example, Dante spent and I spent half a lap side by side in wet conditions, without touching each other and without pushing the other one off the track. It was an awesome battle, and that could only happen because the two of us showed complete respect to each other. Okay. So let's take a look then excuse me, at some of the aspects. Then I want to cover basically three main things. As I say, this is not an exhaustive list. There are other aspects that can come into it. But let's take a look at three tips that I can give that'll help then you to improve your racecraft. So first things first, forget about the racing line. Um, all too often, we see drivers who try to follow the racing line like a rail. And although the racing line can be a useful tool, if you're someone that um, you know, can't or don't want to, or for whatever reason, you can't get used to the braking markers without using the racing line, everyone here is welcome to use it, um, but use it as a tool to help you rather than following it like a reel, um, because you need that little bit of flexibility, especially when it comes to battles. Because if you follow the racing line during a battle, you're going to end up causing a crash. And I have a little example on my next slide, where the driver came into the corner following the racing line, and ended up just cutting the other driver off, even though they were down the inside. And we see this all too often, and this is what we give out a lot of penalties for. Um, so while a driver is side by side with you, you need to switch off following the racing line in your brain, and you have to think, right, I probably have to go a bit wider here, carry the speed around the outside of the corner, give space on the inside or outside indeed, uh, but you need to think about, right, I need to go off the racing line here. This is where drivers that don't use the racing line, they can tend to be a little bit more flexible, and we generally don't see penalties for drivers that don't use racing line cutting another driver off, because they have that little bit of flexibility. I'm not saying it never happens, but generally, when it comes to using the racing line, a lot of people follow it like a reel, as I say. Uh, there's also a link in there. It's a white square at the moment. That's great. Um, but it should come up as a link. It's advice on how to remove the racing line from Driver 61. If you want to check that out, do feel free to. This slide pack will be posted. If that link doesn't work, let me know, and I can send you the link. But that is a little bit of advice from Driver 61. I really enjoy his videos, and he goes through some of the tips and tricks on learning how to not use the racing line. As I say, everyone is welcome to, but if you can learn how to race without it, then your racing can become more flexible. So I'm just going to play this clip here. Hopefully everyone can see this okay. So you see there where this driver, I cut out the names so that no one would know, but yes, is Tixnix here in the Ferrari. So you can see here that the Renault here is side by side with the Ferrari, but the Ferrari is just aiming for the apex, following the racing line as if the Renault was not there. And in this
specifically
instance,
cut him off.
yeah. So in this instance, this then resulted in a 5-second penalty because there was zero space whatsoever. This was not even in fact, the Ferrari here has actually mounted the curb, so there's negative space really. So this is not acceptable. This resulted in a 5-second penalty, whereas if the Ferrari had have went a little bit wider here, given space to the Renault, the battle could have then continued all the way down into the next corner, and the Ferrari may then have lost position, potentially, but at least it could have battled back, whereas after the race, the Ferrari was given a 5-second penalty and dropped several positions as a result. Just simply because of the fact that the racing line here was just followed like a reel, as if this car on the inside was not there. So please bear that in mind. Sometimes you have to go a little bit wider when there's a car down your inside. Okay, and you should pay attention to your proximity arrows. They are the best thing about sim racing, really, that we can have these proximity arrows on that let us know, hey, there's a car down your inside, so you need to leave the space. So then let's take a look then at what we want to think about next. Look ahead. whenever you're racing on track, again, this is probably something more for drivers that use racing line. You can tend to just stare at the racing line and ignore everything else. You have a big, massive screen in front of you, um, and what you need to do, and this doesn't just help from avoiding incidences, say that 5 times fast. Um, it also helps you to get faster as well, is to look ahead, not just 5 meters ahead at the what color the racing line is, but all the way to the next corner, the next apex, and then even to the exit of the next corner as well if you can. Look as far ahead as you can. The further you can look ahead, the easier it is then to react. So not only if you'd be able to see a car that is spun a lot earlier and take avoiding action around them, but as well as that, you can also see where the next apex is and where the next corner exit is. So not only does it help, as I say, from avoiding incidences, but also it can help you get faster. Because how real racing drivers go around the circuit is whenever they hit their braking point, they're already looking at the apex. When they hit the apex, they're already looking at the exit. That way, your eyes are essentially kind of guiding the car where you need it to go. Um, and this then can help you carry more speed. And it's a little thing that drivers that don't use the racing line, generally they have built up that skill over a long time. If you're using racing line, it can be a little bit tricky, but try to look further down the track, as far down the track as you can. Obviously, in Monaco, it's something that's very, very difficult to do, but on a big, wide open track like, say, France, you can look a really, really long way down the track. You could see a spun car from a mile away, so there should be no reason why you should make contact with that car. If you do see something happening in front of you, then let off the throttle. If you keep going absolutely foot flat to the floor, you're just going to end up involved in the incident. It is generally, on average, better to let off the throttle, slow down a little bit, move out round the incident, and then come back on track, rather than just keeping your foot planted and hoping to get lucky. Because 9 times out of 10 you're just going to end up involved in that incident, and you might lose a position as a result of avoiding the incident, but at least you can fight another day. Whereas if you get caught up in the incident, you lose your wing, you have to box. Do you want to box? Nobody wants to have to box for a broken wing, because that puts you out of the fight. So better to slow down, avoid it. Also, look out for yellow flags. We've seen this a few times as well when it comes to reports where a yellow flag pops up, and yet the driver doesn't take any kind of avoiding action and then slaps into another driver that has spun in front of them. And in this kind of instance, well, that's what yellow flags are for. They're to let you know, hey, there's a bit of danger ahead. Maybe you should be looking further down the track, look out for where that car might have spun, and come off the racing line a little bit. Or at the very least, you might have to take some avoiding action. So look out for yellow flags as well. They're there for you to be able to use to let you know that there is some kind of hazard up ahead. So let's take a look at some McLaren driver having issues here. So you'll see the pack is all bunched up here. You'll see a car had a bit of an issue there on the exit of that corner, and it resulted in a collision. So let's just take a look at this here nice and slowly. Wonderful. So you can see if I was looking further ahead here, I would have been able to see that Lobster has gone off track. He's probably going to struggle with traction. So I should be thinking, right, if Lobster's car snaps, I could be driving into it. So right here, as you're driving now, obviously it's a lot more difficult in cockpit cam, but if you were on T cam, you'd be able to see further around here. But you should be looking at this train of cars all the way through, not just staring at this Ferrari's gearbox, or the Williams gearbox here. You should be looking all the way around, and this was my mistake because half a second later, Lobster starts spinning, and I'm building up the throttle out of this corner. I'm looking to slingshot out here to follow these cars, but I don't react quick enough. Lobster starts having issues, and I've got a car on my outside, and I am heading straight to the scene of the accident. And by the time I react, it's too late. I make contact with both cars and end up with wing damage. So, um, if I had of at this point here on the apex of the corner already been looking far ahead and scanning for issues happening, then I could have avoided this incident. But my mistake then ended up with me being caught up in it, and essentially my race was ruined from that point forward. So just a little tip: try and look as far ahead as you can. I have tons more incidences where I've avoided contact because I have been looking ahead, but this was one of the rare instances where I wasn't quite concentrating enough and I got caught up in the issue. So let's take a look then at the last one. Be patient. So all too often we see another big issue in reports is someone dive bombing down the inside and absolutely murdering the lead car. And there is really no need for it unless it is the last lap of the entire season and you need to gain that position to win the season. But even then, you shouldn't be dive bombing because you're just going to get a penalty and you're going to ruin your race anyway. But it's a long season, and most of us here drive 50% races, and even those that drive 25% races, the skill gap is quite large, so you can take your time anyway. But most of us here drive 50% races. That's a long race. You don't have to dive bomb. We can all get the DRS. Plus, as well, there are other little points to consider as well. So remember, races are marathons, not a sprint. You cannot win the race in the first corner, but you can DNF. If you send it down the inside on the first corner, yep, sometimes you might gain a position or two. But at the same time, you could end up wiping your wing off. And again, a little trick that I like to use is I pretend that my front wing is made of glass and I have to protect it at all costs. If you think like that, then you brake earlier. Yes, you might lose a position at the start, but you keep your wing intact, and then everyone else has to box whenever they dive bomb in. They have to box, replace their wing, and you gain a few positions. And then you can battle, and then you can work your way forward. And if you drive carefully and you drive patiently and don't just hot lap every lap, then you can avoid accidents. And as we were talking about earlier, avoid other people spinning. 2021 is going to be a very difficult game where there's going to be a lot of spins. If you can avoid those drivers, then you can pass them. It's not necessarily going to be the person who comes away with the fastest laps is going to win the race. So bear that in mind. It's about reducing your overall race time, and that is not, as I say, necessarily about hot lapping every lap. Yes, sometimes you gotta push. We're racing drivers. We like to go fast, and I'm not saying you should sandbag and drive at 60% pace. You want to drive fast. I try to drive as fast as I can, but sometimes backing off a little bit helps you save your tires, helps you save fuel, helps you to avoid accidents, helps you to avoid track cut penalties. How many positions do you lose after the race when you've got 18 seconds of penalties? And whenever you see that guy that's, you've been faster than him all race, but he jumps you at the end of the race because he's got no penalties. It happens to me quite a lot, I have to admit, because I'm pushing too hard and I get track limit penalties. Um, so avoiding those track limit penalties by, just toning down your pace just a little bit, um, helps you avoid those penalties and helps stop you losing then those positions. And it can reduce your overall race time because you can save tires. Maybe you can do a soft medium instead of soft hard. Um, maybe in the wets, you can avoid a spin where otherwise someone else might spin and then you overtake them. So if you're on someone's gearbox, you want to get past them. We're all racing drivers. You want to make the overtake. Definitely. That's what we want to see. We want to see people fighting, but you have to do it safely. Maybe you should consider, if it's early in the race, box early. Do the undercut. If you're faster than them, you might very well be able to box early, go on to the new tires, and undercut them. It's not the most fun way to overtake someone, but it guarantees that it's safe because then you're not battling him at any point. Can I get DRS this lap? If you're going to be able to get DRS, there's no point dive bombing it into a section where there is no DRS. If you can get DRS this lap, for example, sending it down the inside of castle section, losing 2 or 3 seconds, whenever you could just wait for the big massive DRS and fly on past, make a nice clean overtake, and then disappear. So sometimes waiting a few corners is better overall. An example here is where I lost a potential win in Great Britain because I tried to overtake Moroccan in a spot where it wasn't good or it wasn't a clean overtake. It ended up losing me and Moroccan several seconds. The driver behind, Crimson, caught us and overtook me. And then I lost a few other positions as a result when I had the pace to be able to win the race. Although it was an awesome battle, Moroccan, just to say. But that was a little mistake on my part where if I had have potentially waited another lap, saved up my ERS and fuel, blasted past on a DRS straight, I could have been clear and then left Crimson and Moroccan to battle it out, losing time to each other while I run away. So being patient can help reduce your overall race time. What tires is the car in front on? If the car in front is on, brand new softs, and you're on old hards, is there any point in dive bombing down his inside? He's probably going to overtake you anyway and cost you time. It might be better just sitting behind, getting in his DRS and letting him pull you along. You might not be able to overtake him, but it might bring you into the battle with other hard tire runners. If you're on brand new softs and he's on old hards, then yes, you want to get past as early as possible. But once again, dive bombing down the inside, that's still going to overall lose you time. You need to make sure you pick your point. Maybe what you want to do is go really wide, take a late apex, and cut back on him, and use that extra drive from the softs to be able to get really good acceleration, boot your overtake button, and fly on past. But again, being patient for a few corners may just help in your overall race time instead of battling for a few corners and losing seconds. Also, as well, this was a major issue from last season. There was a car that had 6 seconds of penalties. The car in front had 0. It was the final lap, so the car behind was not going to pull out 6 seconds, but the car behind went for a dive bomb, made contact, and spun out the car with no penalties. And it was insanely stupid because it meant then that the car that dive bombed got extra penalties and they dropped even further, Whereas if they had have just stayed behind the car that had no penalties, they weren't going to get that position anyway. So just sit behind, follow them for the last lap. I know, again, we're racing drivers, we want to race as much as possible, but when you have track limit penalties, sometimes you have to think big brain. And the big brain move in that case would have been just, right, it's last lap, don't do anything stupid, just bring the car home. And then I don't think he was going to lose any positions actually as a result of his 6 seconds, but because of the contact, he lost positions. Um, so sometimes you need to just big brain overall, um, and think about, okay, car in front has more penalties than me, so there's no point in risking an overtake. I'll just sit behind him, and then when we go across the line, then the penalties put him behind me. Or on the flip side, I've got more penalties than him. There's no point risking a move because I can't pull out that gap anyway. So just sit behind, use the DRS to pull along so you don't lose any other positions. Okay. All right. So I think that's really all of the points that I have. As I say, I'll upload these slides. Plus everything is on YouTube. So if you do want to rewatch anything, then it is all up there. Also, if you have anything you would like to ask me, offline or anything, do feel free to ping me a little message. But the reason why I think that we wanted to do this was to help, number one, reduce the number of penalties that the FIA have to deal with because we're all volunteers and we end up spending 1 or 2 hours on a Monday night going through these, and a lot of them are preventable. There will always be reports, there will always be mistakes made. I'm not saying don't make mistakes. We're all human, we all make mistakes. But a lot are preventable. Someone just braking far too late, someone being impatient, someone not looking far enough ahead, someone following the racing line, without due care and attention. You need to respect the other drivers that are on track as well. We're all here to enjoy racing, but if you end up, no one wants their night to be ruined by another driver. So think about what it would be like if you got dive bombed by another person before you dive bomb someone. Because no one wants to get taken out. So I think that is all for me. Thanks for listening. Does anyone have any questions we would like to discuss?
I have this isn't a question, but
go ahead, even anything to add as well.
So I have a full race video from Great Britain season 11, where I started P15 and finished P1 by not battling anybody, knowing the strategy, and avoiding all penalties. I finished P4 on the track, and finished P1 because other people got penalties and I got none. And it shows basically how when you know somebody's faster than you, don't defend against them. When you are faster than somebody, overtake them at the right point, don't battle. And then it also shows negative examples. Other people battled and lost a ton of time to me, and I ended up overtaking them because of that, or getting them on penalties. And I think that might be the same race where you battled Moroccan and lost time.
I think it was a different one. Yeah, it was the season before,
but
I think I was involved in that too. Yeah, because
I think you also battled Moroccan.
I think we probably were fighting at the spicy end as well. So my example I was using was a different one. It was because it was the season just past.
Okay.
Because Crimson was involved. But you're right. The season before that then was whenever we had that battle. So yeah, exactly. Thank you for sharing that, Elcor. Yeah, exactly. That just goes to show that you can be smart and win a race. it's not just about outright pace. On that day, I think you would agree with me, Alcor, that you didn't have the outright um, fastest lap pace, but
Oh no, not at all.
yeah, but because you drove smart,
yeah,
you won the race. So
yeah, Rashford was by far had the fastest pace that day, but he spun somebody out and got a 10-second penalty. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it
And
just goes to show.
I posted that video in the Race Academy channel. Sometimes
Excellent.
it helps. Sometimes it's just as helpful to have a positive example of what to do.
Agree. Yes.
So that you know what that looks like, in addition
Agreed.
to knowing what it looks like to not do the thing you're supposed to do.
Agree.
So.
I probably should have put a few positive examples in too. But yeah, that would be good something for people to check out if you want to see that. So yeah, that'll be in Race Academy then. Thank you, Elcourt.
Yeah, I got another example. When last season in Australia and when I was a reserve in D1.
Yep.
Since like lap 8 or 7, I was behind Snacking Owl.
Yep.
And I was overall like faster than him, or like at least I matched his pace.
Yep.
But I didn't really go for the overtake. I was trying to find a good gap or just an opportunity.
Yes.
But that's overall what you should do. And he finally, like after like 5 or 10 laps, something like that, he just spun on his own.
There you
I didn't
go.
even have to battle him or anything.
Yep.
Or in Singapore in D2 last season, I know after when the rain came, I got desperate. But
of course.
Yes. It was when it was dry. I was faster than GG Land, but I didn't go for desperate moves. I went for calculated moves, and it didn't always pay off because, for example, when I was trying to overtake him on the straight, I broke, I think, a bit too early into the corner after the next straight, and he got me back after like 2 corners. He got it back, so yeah.
No, I remember that race. I'm pretty sure I commentated that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was some great examples of you were playing it smart. And then obviously that example where we showed there. Yeah, but obviously when it comes to rain, if you're not used to it, you can be a little bit desperate. And sometimes the pressure gets to you,
I just couldn't find my pace.
Yeah, it's fine, exactly. So, I mean, as I say, we're all humans, and sometimes big brain thinking leaves the chat. But if you try to use some of these here tips and tricks as often as you can, then it'll help you overall. Any other questions?
The first example you showed with the Ferrari.
Yes.
Do you have Ferrari's perspective to show what they could see? Because obviously I know some of us, some people have got like ultra wide monitors, so you might have a bit better vision.
Yes.
Some people have got regular 16:9, so maybe not so much. So obviously that, from the Ferrari's perspective, I know that obviously from the images you showed, it looked like they were quite close, so they should have been able to see.
Yes.
But if they're right in the wrong position, or if they're just in the wrong position, you might not have the visibility.
Of course.
So that's what I'm wondering if you had that perspective, just so we can see at what point, how good was the visibility there?
Yeah, do take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. I'm pretty sure that Tix has uploaded his POV as well.
I did that on purpose because I got desperate. I knew he was way faster than me in the rain. I couldn't find my pace, and I was like, okay, what can I do to like hold him back?
Yeah.
I know it's a bit cheap, but like that's kind of how it is.
And that's not really the point that I was kind of trying to make anyway. And yes, sometimes someone follows the racing line and it's because they don't realize there's a car there that they end up turning in. I'm not saying that you must be 100% aware of every car ever. No, it's better if you are.
Of course.
But what I'm trying to say is that when you know there's a car there, you shouldn't be turning in and following the racing line. When you know that there is a car around you and you should always be looking around, you should be thinking, there is a car beside me, so I should be maybe thinking about going offline a little bit. Yeah, it is part of a report. If I can, I'll bring it up afterwards if anyone is interested.
Yeah,
so
please.
we can have a quick look at it. In fact, let me look through now. While I'm answering other questions. Anyone else have any other questions? Oh, in fact, I think this is it right here. Oh no, no, we don't have the Ferrari POV in that one. I think Tix, you just said that. Yeah.
I
my
can
fault.
show the POV.
If you have it there, that would be great. Any other questions?
I don't know how to call it.
Okay. If that's it from everyone, if you do want to ask me just questions, if you don't want to say out loud, do feel free to just message me. So I'll have a look through the list of who attended today, to see if anyone gets their penalty point removed. We all like that.
Yeah, I don't know if you did it right at the beginning or if you're doing it now. I missed the first minute or two because I was late coming back from work.
No problem. I did take a snapshot at the start, but I will take another one now as well because I think you were here for most of it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll be nice.
Oh, thanks,
yeah,
man.
I know. Aren't I just nice? Exactly. See, it's because the season hasn't started yet, so it's not Angie Mav yet. JK. This is going to be the best season ever. There's going to be 0 reports, aren't there, guys? Excellent. I will take silence as a yes. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. I am going to leave it there then. But let's make this a really good season. Hopefully, everyone is really, really hyped. We're all really looking forward to season 14. I know I'm really looking forward to it. I really can't wait to see what it's going to be like with everything all shaken up. So let's have a good season 14. Let's build the hype for it. It's not long now, only a few days before we all get back on track again and all get to race each other. So let's go, LC.